Welcome back to your weekly edition of the CELTSAREHERE podcast. Declan joined by Quinny. We're going to have young Aaron on later on in the show. He'll be joining us to chat all things Celtic. Quinny, it's been a wee while since you've been on. Me and you usually catch up every week. We did catch up last week after the cup final on the Monday, and we had our reaction. I must say though, after that game, ended up watching the game that night back, and it was a lot more comfortable watching it back with a cuppa in hand. Not too much to worry about as much as I kind of thought being at the game and whatnot. But we've played twice since then, but we've both not been on since Celtic added another 6 points. It's 10 games to go in the league. We beat St Mirren 5-1 on Sunday, and recording this Thursday morning, beat Hearts last night. I imagine Robbie Nielsen's shower that this morning was, really the place to be, because he was pretty upset last night, the Jambos manager. Not that, we've not seen that before, Quinny. I think the line that he said last night was that players would have to get decapitated for a Celtic player to get sent off at Celtic Park. Just kind of starting on that, I suppose maybe it's better to get the bad out the way first. It's just, you kind of know what Robbie Nielsen's doing heading into this game on Saturday, don't you? Putting that kind of pressure on officials, and it's the same old story with him. And if you think back to the game in October that we won 4-3, he wasn't moaning about referee performances that day.
No, totally. You can tell from the team that he put out last night, if you're looking at this as a week for Hearts in their season in terms of what they can do, then he's very much used the game last night as like a precursor to the weekend, in his comments post-game. 100% as part of probably his strategy to winning at the weekend, as all the rotations, they rotated just as much as we did, quite surprising to a lot. Notice see Shankland in the squad, and I don't think Snodgrass was a huge surprise because when they had European football, I know he wasn't registered, but he was only playing weekends anyway. But he's very clearly set up that he's prioritising the weekend with the team selection that he put out, result aside, and the fact they went 1-0 up probably was almost certainly was not in the script for them either. They did not see that coming. And yeah, so I think all those comments, that's the first thing I'm thinking about already, is he's getting warmed up for the game at the weekend in terms of the officials. Yeah, fair enough. Maybe there's some of that going on, but I would think of it more as like that whole siege mentality, like in terms of your own dressing room and getting them all riled up. Let's see, guys, this is how good we need to be, and this is the level we need to perform to because of X, Y, and Z, that kind of internal motivation. So yeah, it was always going to be it's always going to be a funny kind of two-legged affair with Hearts on and off the pitch this week, wasn't it?
It was, and I think that's kind of only been added to the amount of changes that we made. Quinny, I always thought going into this game that Celtic would try and mix it up due to the fact we haven't played midweek to weekend football for a wee while. There was players going into the game last night that you knew needed game time, particularly the two fullbacks who we'll speak about, in Anthony Ralston and Alexandro Bernabe. But it was interesting. I was lucky enough to be in the post match last night with Ange Postecoglou and Sead Haksabanovic. And when I got to chat to Haxa, one of the things I'd asked him about was, that the manager spoke a lot heading into the game about having the squad ready to go weekend, midweek, weekend. One of the things that I really wanted to ask him was, in terms of the intensity in training, if that upped the ante, having that break in the middle of not having the break in the middle of it, having 3 games in the space of a week. And it was pretty clear in that the intensity gets even more difficult when they go Saturday to Saturday, which, says a lot about this Ange Postecoglou team, that when they do have days in between, that they're really going at it and using them. But it was always going to be an interesting affair, because when the draw was made for the Cup, we knew that Scotland were playing at Midfield on the Sunday, meaning that there wasn't too much spaces for the game. The Friday was going to come far too soon, because obviously we had the league fixture scheduled in for the Wednesday night, and you don't really want a Monday night Cup game. We'll leave that for the Falkirks of the world. I think they take on air on Monday night in the Cup. So it was always going to be an interesting kind of, two-legged occasion, as you say, but it set up pretty nicely for Saturday. It was a tasty game last night. As you say, Nielsen's kind of come out with that siege mentality stuff. Everybody's against us and whatever else. He'll want to get his crowd right behind him at Tynecastle, as he always do. It's always a place that's difficult. But again, Celtic will be aided by that full stand behind the goal on Saturday, the Roseburn. So, yeah, it's going to be tasty on Saturday. I think we're in for a right good cup game, and we could take a really big step towards that hopeful third trophy this season if we can book out another day at Hampden, because I think with beating Rangers in that final, guys like Haksabanovic, missing that opportunity in that game, there's only going to be more hunger and desire to either right wrongs or continue that success. They've all had that taste of Hampden now, the current squad, for the guys that maybe didn't get that last season. They want to be back there. So it's set up really nicely for Saturday. We'll try and, I think, look at, last night and then kind of bring in the St Mirren game, because I think there's a good few similarities in terms of impact subs and obviously going a goal down. I think in both games, Quinny, that this Celtic team, but as much as we speak about them playing really good football, sticking to their principles, they show a lot of character in games, and last night and Sunday they had to do that. They had to come back in the face of adversity, going a goal down. Sunday maybe a wee bit more difficult, you could say, conceding a penalty so early on at a place that we'd obviously lost at earlier in the season, but both games in a way a wee bit of a mirror of themselves. We're not kind of used to that with Celtic this season, are we?
No, it's definitely been like a kind of cold shower for Celtic in the last two games, in that sense, where going the goal down does kind of change the game plan in a respect that maybe gives the opposition something to defend against a bit more. It doesn't really change us, but it definitely changes their urgency to maybe attack any space that would come their way. They've got no motivation to do that for spells. So the onus end really does come on us to break them down. And I think to kind of bring both these games into something that kind of crosses over between both of them, I was rather surprised to see Moy start last night. Obviously had a great game at the weekend, 2 assists, played 75 minutes or so. And if you look at the kind of rotation pattern, it looked quite clear that probably O'Reilly was going to come in for this, probably at the expense of Moy. But it was actually to the expense of Rio, which was a bit of a surprise. And Moy, again, 80 minutes on the pitch. Again, another assist, and he was like running the show in midfield, weekend and midweek, which not too many midfielders get to do. And having it been against St Mirren, who have probably been the best team outside of Rangers and Hearts have played this year, and Hearts, who are probably outside of Rangers, the best team have played in the league this year. For him to be a key part in both those games, coming right back to back, going a goal down, being the main man in midfield, and actually creating goals and being effective in the final third. It was actually one of the things when I listened to the show with Ryan and Aaron and yourself on the Thursday after we did Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Ryan, but somebody said that the scene Hatate is like the Lubo of the team. And it was the only time in the show I wanted to like jump into the conversation and go, oh, and because for me, Moy is, if anyone's the Moravchik of this team, it's Moy. Definitely because I think the age kind of adds into it a little bit as well. But that two-footed nature, that kind of guy, when he comes in, all you need is like a Hugh Keevins clip of saying that we should have signed Snodgrass or something. You know what I mean? Instead of Moy, and it would have been an absolute parallel. But Moy, I think, has been incredible over those games. And I'm kind of on the fence now. I don't know if he'll come into the weekend he should on form. There's no two ways about it. But, he has given O'Reilly minutes. Rio's coming back into the team. And like we've seen over the last two games as well, crucial in both games in the last 10 minutes, Tomoki Iwata, going box to box all over the place as well. So the midfield, we've known how deep and competitive it looks on paper, but now we're really seeing it on the pitch that there is like 6 guys, 7 guys even throw Turnbull into this as well. You know what I mean? That's all going for these same 3 spots.
Absolutely. We've got Aaron joining us, so I'll bring him in to the conversation just now. Good morning, Aaron. We're having a look at last night. We're just kind of bringing Sunday into that. We've just been chatting about Aaron Moy there. Quinny was saying he was quite surprised to see him start last night, but it's been another 2 solid performances from him here. I've just noted down there. He's been involved in 7 goals in 6 games, and the manager was saying last night, he knew that he had these qualities. I think all of us probably on this podcast thought when he came in, I know you said last week you maybe had your doubts about him. I think a lot of Celtic fans did, but he's kind of taken on this new role in this team, and when you're needing him to produce some magic, he's able to do it.
Definitely. He's been a catalyst for the team, especially last night. I felt it was a wee bit erratic, especially when Hearts were 1-0 up. And I felt he got him on the ball, calmed the game down. He got us playing some nice football at times, especially that pass through to Kyogo as well. No Jota. It's a lovely pass to Moy there. But again, to find Kyogo there, play him in that, good ball into him. So really good influence, I thought, last night.
Yeah, it was a tidy goal. I actually thought, being at the game, I imagine you were at Celtic Park as well last night, Aaron, that Moy might actually waited a wee bit too long. But what do I know? He's
Yeah,
former Premier League midfield and all that stuff. It was a perfectly timed pass and a really, really tidy finish from Kyogo. But the bit that you pick out with that second goal, I think that was what the manager said was most pleasing last night, was the quality of goals. And Jota, he's not really a player that we talk too much about his defensive qualities, but he wins the ball out. He wins the ball back out absolutely nothing last night to get that goal started.
yeah, he does. And then to hit that pass as well through to Moy, he was leaning back. He looked like the ball was going nowhere, going out of play, and he just manages just to. It's top class from him. You see his quality. He might not have got the assist for it, but he made that goal. It's because of him. We got that winner. We got that second goal. Sorry, Kyogo could get on the score sheet for his 20th goal of the league.
We will talk about Kyogo. The manager's pretty frustrated, not about Kyogo himself, but the guys around him, not using him enough. Quinny, but as I say there, being involved in 7 goals, he's only scored 2 of them, 5 assists. But when you're in situations, Aaron talks about the game being a wee bit erratic last night, which I think is very fair to say after we went the goal down. St Mirren made it difficult for us on Sunday. As much as, us that are paying TV subscriptions and £32 to go and watch the game, want to watch football. If a team go 1-0 up, they're obviously going to have a game plan and try and stick to it. But, it just comes up with some magic again. I know we've dubbed him the Maverick in this, but just when you need somebody like that, he always is able to pick somebody a pass.
Yeah, for sure. And like the passing quality we get in midfield is one of the big things that we've seen from Rio and his kind of development over the last couple of months as well. But and what we've seen from probably like the best version we had of O'Reilly is those line breaking passes that just slide somebody in behind the defence. They've got the box, and then quite often we're looking for the runners at the back post and that kind of thing. Or like Kyogo does, just put it in the net by himself. And like having that clear route to go, or even that clear route to even just getting the fullback in on that ball. Like even when the teams we're playing against are camping in and trying to block those spaces and really camp it in and make it 2 banks of 4 and all that kind of stuff, we're still able to move the ball around in such a way with these guys in midfield that it will peel a little bit of space out, and every one of them are just taking every inch of space that they're getting right now and using it to great effect, And Kyogo's goal, like I was so glad to see it just absolutely rifle into the net, because first time finish, breaking through, 1-on-1 with the keeper, no hesitation, absolutely clinical. It was a great finish as well to round it off. And other strikers and maybe Kyogo himself, and other times that ball doesn't always go in. It is a really good finish from the wee man himself. And all the goal scorers that we're mounting up now, like see looking at the 5 we got against St Mirren and then obviously the 3 last night, like, the goals and the assists, all the contributions are wide across the pitch now. And like Aaron's saying there, Lajota's not even really credited with anything statistically for his input on the game, but it's clear to see that he was a key part in all the kind of the bobbing and the weaving, as it were.
Yeah, I don't think, I know it was only half an hour. I think Dyson made lasted in the game, but taking somebody his quality off and replacing with Jota must be, a defender's nightmare. But we'll bring Kyogo into the conversation now. Obviously, as you say, hit his 25th goal of the season last night. That's 45 goals in a Celtic jersey. I'd imagine he'll hit 50 goals in a Celtic jersey this season. Quinny had said he, would definitely get 25. He's hit that before the end of March. It'd be great if he hit 30 before the end of March and even maybe look towards 40. I think Lee Griffiths must have been the last Celtic striker to hit 40 goals in a season. Who, of course, yesterday joined the Managerial City again, semi-professional team at 32. Maybe as an indication where his career has went in recent times. But back to Kyogo, our main man, pretty quiet. Aaron, the past 2 games, I think that's been doing to service. And the manager expressed his frustration about that last night. He said that was a bit of a frustrating thing because I just didn't think we used him at all tonight. And then he went on to say he makes fantastic runs, and sometimes I get really frustrated that after 18 to 20 minutes, we still don't see them. The beauty of it is that he doesn't get frustrated. He keeps making those runs. When we do find him in those areas, he's a quality player, both of his assist for the first goal in the 25th minute that set up Dyson Maeda and the finish for the second. He's an outstanding contributor. We don't maybe see too much of Kyogo doing that for the first goal. These assists, aren't, a Jota or an O'Reilly kind of a level, but It shows you that he's got that in his game, and we knew he had that in his game because he played, obviously, in that left-hand side for VCL Kobe. But and last night, it shows that there is that interchangeability between the forward players, that he gets that ball off of Tony Ralston and he's off, plays the ball over, and it's a great finish for Dyson.
Yeah, what you said is right, and the same with Ange. I mean, last night he was constantly making these runs. I mean, Hearts almost wanted them to make that run. They left them able to do them, and the team just couldn't find them. They couldn't see him, couldn't give him a decent ball. Especially during the second half, it was down my end. The amount of times I could see him make that run and then drift offside, come straight back onside and do the same run again. You keep doing it, keep persevering with it, and that's what you want to see from him, because one of these times he'll get a decent ball put into him, like he did yesterday to set up that goal for Maeda. And all again, that just came from that run being left by the Hearts defence, being able to do that run. It's just need to start picking them out more often, I think, and we'll get a lot more goals if we just keep doing that. It's a ball over the top, but Ange doesn't want to play that. I don't think the players do either. They want to keep the ball on the ground, but sometimes that ball over the top's what you need to break up the defence.
The Connor Goldson ball, the big switch that our rivals like to play. But I think there is, Quinny, definitely something in that. If you think back a month, the Livingston game, I think it's O'Reilly that pings the big ball over 2 minutes. A brilliant finish for Kyogo, a similar kind of type of goal. I think those comments for the manager, though, are pretty fair, because like Aaron, I was noticing it last night, and I thought, oh, there he's off, and he's ready to go, and does he end up going to him and maybe play the ball to the winger, or it stays around in the midfield areas? I think probably for Ange's sake, that the biggest frustration in this, Quinny, will be, you speak about how key and how good our passing is in a game, but at times like that, maybe it does take 20 minutes to notice where he is. But having worked with the players every single day in the training pitch, he probably knows that those players can pick him out with these type of balls, and it's just maybe not translating into the games as much as he'd like it to do just now.
Well, as much as like the ball that plays Kyogo in for the goal is like a much, it comes from Ralston. It's a very much a long ball, in terms of like how much.
It's a great ball for Ralston. Actually, it was his first kind of effective thing in the game, because he was having a stinker before that.
Yeah, it gets a lot of yardage, but again, it's the same as what we were talking about with Moyne that second ago. It's one of those line-breaking passes. Kyogo peels into that space and it just puts him into the box very well, and I think that the main tech, like Ange, like is all, the football's all about high tempo, that's why the forwards are always moving, the ball is always moving, no one's ever got their foot on the ball, and it's again, when you're going through, that's one of the things I like about Ralston when he has played, and it's great to see him get the minutes again last night, because sometimes when we're shaping up and we're coming out, and like Ralston's carrying it, or Bernabe last night, or whoever, sometimes the teams that we play against know we're going to try and link up some passes, we're going to try and do some stuff, and they'll just go back 5 yards and get a wee bit, make sure you can see everyone, get your man, and all that kind of thing. And with Juranovic and then Taylor, when they were kind of developing, getting up to speed and whatever, sometimes and Ralston himself, they would just stand on the ball and then I don't know what to do with it, and then go to the centre backs or go to McGregor, and then we're all kind of getting a bit frustrated by it. But Ralston, when he got into some really good form, would see those opportunities and he would just keep going. He would just keep going forward, move the team back. And it's that keeping them on their toes and keeping them moving. And last night, I think just paints into the same kind of thing where he doesn't need to run in. The ball can move much faster than a man, so he sees that space, he sees Kyogo's in the shoulder, and it's just send the ball down there for him. So I think that's like right in with what we're after. And maybe like, maybe like Johnson would have probably carried that another 10 or 15 yards because he's only been here for like 2 or 3 months. He's not at that confidence level or quite get that kind of synergy of seeing between the lines and seeing the run and all that kind of thing. So I'm quite looking forward to, if we get Ralston in a run of minutes, maybe on the bigger pitches that we play on, that kind of pass is going to be open to us, because as much as like Kyogo then has got the ability to peel in and do some stuff, because like we're always talking about, and Aaron's brought up a good point with it as well, that like the front three are also interchangeable, that when Kyogo's peeling out there to put the ball in, like Maeda was there, but on many other matches, we've seen the amount of bodies we flood into the box. There could be 2 or 3 in there for that. And it's not just because Kyogo's a striker, he has to be in the middle. He's just on the front line breaking for that ball. So it's good to see the guys are getting in on the end of it as well. And Kyogo's not just up there. Like, because the goal he takes, he's the last man. It's 1-1 with the keeper. That's fair enough. But he's not really been in the opportunity often enough to play those balls. He's normally relying on somebody else finding him. So if we can add that in as another runner, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and you see that intelligence between Moy and Kyogo because he cuts across the Hearts defender. It'd be very easy for him to just kind of hold his position and make that run forward. But he knows where Moy's going to put the ball, so he makes that choice to cut across and he absolutely bangs it past Xander Clark. You know, you speak about that flood of goals as well earlier on, Quinny. That must be 8 different goal scorers in the 2 games. So again, that tells you that you do quite literally have goals all over the park. We were talking about some players, particularly Aaron. We brought Tomoki Iwata in January. He's not played too many games. I'd imagine the manager will want to at least make sure he gets 10 under his belt so he's eligible for a league winners medal towards the end of the season. But I tell you something, see if Tomoki Iwata's Celtic career is coming on for the last 10 minutes of games, you'll get your money's worth, because when he does come on for the last 10 minutes of games, he's continually been a presence when he comes onto that midfield, and he kind of, strangleholds, I think, the end of the game. I've been pretty impressed by him.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, it was quite erratic, the game, especially when it was 2-1. And he came on and kind of calmed it down a wee bit, got a few passes together, kind of dictated play from that holding midfielder role. And what I think was interesting as well, when he came on, Cal McGregor was pushed up a little bit alongside of Tatty. And I thought at that point in the game, it was 2-1. I thought we'd put a double pivot in and just sit and see out that scrape that 2-1 win. Because at the time, Hearts were going for it, and I don't know about yous, but I was a wee bit on edge, thinking they're going to pull one back here. It was good to see him come on there and have that influence over the team.
Quinny, I hope that, Tomoki Iwata's Celtic career, isn't he? Just, coming on for 10 minutes every single game, and that's how you see him. But that's what we've been able to judge him on so far. And if that, is all that we get from him, I think it'll be impressive. But I said on here before, I think next season when you're back to Champions League that we hope to be, he's going to be a really important player for us, because in situations like last night against, as you say, one of the best teams that will play in the league, he came on and, he just controlled the game again, much like he did in that cup final towards the end when you really needed him.
I think it's interesting what you're saying there, Aaron, because I hear this double pivot chat all over the place when it comes to Celtic in the midfield, and I think if we think about the whole kind of Giakoumakis thing, the manager's quite clear that I don't think the system changes at all depending on who's playing in midfield. But what he does is, the manager that is he lets whatever their actual individual qualities are come into the game. So if we are it's 2-1, right, and McGregor's getting pushed a bit further forward, and yeah, we want another goal, but we're a bit tentative. If we are a bit tentative, O'Reilly, and maybe Moy does, right, but O'Reilly doesn't really have much of a defensive bag to him. If we did want to bank in for 2 minutes, if they were pounding a bit of pressure on us, obviously Watt and McGregor do. So I think it's more a case of the team will stay the same in terms of the midfield dynamics that we see with Moy, McGregor in Rio, or McGregor, O'Reilly in Rio. In terms of, normally you'll find McGregor, who's probably in that right mid position for the right of the three for the last 10 minutes or whatever. He naturally will be further forwards. That's what we see from O'Reilly, and that's what we see from Moy in that position. And then likewise on the other side, it's normally that Rio come on, obviously, that Rio shift. But it's then, if we need to defend, that guy's actually really capable of defending. So see, for 5 minutes, he's got the power in the squad because the manager gives the players the power to read the situation, read the game, and play to their strengths. He's got the ability to just sit in like no other midfielder we have next to McGregor and maybe calm things down for a wee minute or two, get the ball moving around. Because one of the things I've been impressed with Iwata for the couple of minutes he's had in both games is he's actually got to the edge of the box on a couple of counter-attacks and laid a pass off. And even though he is seen as a defensive guy that's coming on and controlling the game, he sees the opportunity, he sees the space, he's got that power in the team to well, I've got the ability to play this pass, so I'm going to play it. And he doesn't need to worry about, I need to do what the manager tells me, or I won't get picked in the team, or, all that kind of nonsense that players normally need to worry about. He's got that freedom to be himself in the system.
Yeah, he certainly, as I say, I think he's going to be an important player, moving on here for Celtic. We're only going to see bits of him, I think, towards the end of the season. Again, if we get the league wrapped up early-ish, he will...
What do you think about that? Do you think, really the system does change depending on the midfielders that are selected? Or do you think it is a bit more of, you see actually the person in the system?
Domestically, I think for us just now, I don't think it changes at all. But I think maybe Champions League it might change. Aaron, what was your thoughts on that? Do you think it? I don't think I agree with what Quinny's saying. There is a system in place. There's new players within the building that play the system. It doesn't matter who it is; they go in and they play the system. But just for me, Champions League, you might just tweak it a wee bit. And I know that's something that Martin O'Neill spoke about. And again, people will say, "Listen, he's the man of Celtic for nearly 20 odd years. You know, games moved on, blah blah blah." But you know, I think you do listen to these kind of things, and he always talks about just making those wee tweaks. I think that just might be a wee tweak that he can do that doesn't change the system too much.
I think so, especially away from home as well. I think they might play two sort of holding midfielders there, just protect defence, give them a wee bit more protection. But at home, unless circumstances make us have to change, I do think we'll keep the same system we had this season. It was effective to some extent. You saw it first half against Madrid, and especially against Shakhtar. I thought were just slightly underperformed, probably never reached our full potential. But in the league, I don't think it'll change too much. And I think maybe last 10 minutes of a game, if you're struggling or whatever, you might look at it. But as Quinny says, it's up to the players. I think they are got that control. They can decide, and the manager's allowing them to do that. So, yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the really interesting things that came out after the game last night, obviously, Ange Postecoglou's 100th game in charge of Celtic. The banner last night, really, really top class for the GB. Sacked by Christmas, cheers to 100 games more, absolutely top class. But stat came out as it does. The Celtic manager's percentage of wins in their first 100 games, the top 5 and minimum, judging them on 100 games. Obviously, we'll apply context to this. Jockstein's the greatest Celtic manager of all time. We all know that. And I think he probably will forever be the greatest Celtic manager of all time. But looking at the top 5, Martin O'Neill hits the top, 75.53%. Ange Postecoglou, second, 74%. Neil Lennon in third at 70.33%. Jockstein in fourth, 70.06%. Brendan Rodgers, fifth, 69.82% win percentage. That's based on 100 games. Pretty impressive. Of course, they all inherited very different spells, but it's really, really impressive when you consider the start that we had and the run that we've actually went on. That again goes for Martin O'Neill, who inherited a Celtic team who were, I think they'd finished 20 odd points as well behind Rangers the season previous. So really, really impressive. And again, looking at Celtic manager average goals per game, Jockstein, no surprisingly, top of that, 2.62. Ange just behind him at 2.53. Then Martin, 2.36. Willie Mealy, 2.25. Neil Lennon at 2.23. Quite funny though, in the sense, remember Quinny and Aaron, that when Ange came, everybody was talking about, he might score goals, but you're not clean sheets and whatever else. Both Steen or Ange don't rank too well when it does come to goals conceded per game. But Celtic way of playing football is always putting the ball into the back of the net, so we don't really need to worry about that. And 253 goals and 100 games is a hell of an impressive record, Quinny. As I say, the banner last night, absolutely excellent. Beautiful. And then after the game, he was asked about the banner, and he said that, this is his quote from last night, he said, "I appreciate the support I've had from fans since the day I arrived. I haven't felt anything but support, even when it wasn't that evident what we were doing. They got behind me in the team, and that has never been lost in me. I want to repay that, and I try to do that on a daily basis." And 100 games, I know we're kind of drifting away here from the team in the park, but in 100 games, to me, he's completely revolutionised the football club. And, I still don't think we're anywhere near where he particularly wants us to be. I think the crux are there, what he was after. The squad's certainly there, but I think we're still going to go up another level under him. What's your thoughts on that, Quinny? In terms of what he's saying there about the fans and everything, as I said, the record is remarkable, really.
Yeah, I was just going. The main thing that was coming into my head when you were talking was time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe it's 100 games already. Like, it does seem like it's absolutely ran away in terms of time. Only feels like yesterday was appointed in the grand scheme of things. And it's great to see that that's the record that he's produced, because we forever feel and talk about how great this Celtic team is, in terms of 1 to 25 or whatever the squad is at this point. It's it is really exciting, and it's it's a great time to be a Celtic fan now. Like there's absolutely nothing really to be upset about really these days, except for maybe some of the VAR stuff now and again, and some of the drama that goes around football in general, you know. But the squad's brilliant. There's no bad eggs, no bad apples or anything. We're spending money on like good players, and it's not really about spending big money like it maybe has been about in the past, because it's normally the easy answer for quality is the amount of money you spend, whereas we're now being actively like really clever. With a clever manager in a coherent fashion. You know, it's not like anything we've really done before, really, since like probably O'Neill, when he had like full scope to spend every penny and pound as he seen fit, you know. So yeah, it's great to see that that's the kind of achievement he's got there. And hopefully, you know, I mean, like the manager, you can tell as well, like with some of the comments he came out with around the final and whatever, like I'll be here for longer than people think and all that kind of stuff. And the reaction you see him giving the fans over the last couple of games, he's giving it the extra kind of oomph and the big, you know, the big heart punches and everything, you know, and like he really is properly like one of us, I think, in that sense. Like you see him doing everything for the team. And the thing with Ange, I watch a lot of like other football as well, right? But the thing with Ange in particular, and the mindset all the way throughout the squad that is so rare in like modern football these days, is like absolute accountability for like there's no excuses made, there's no corners, there's no shortcuts, no corners cut kind of thing. It's all about what we're about, what we do, what I do, and we'll do all the talking on the park kind of thing, you know. Shows up, doesn't bring a coach with him, and you know, like I can't use the proper expression, but
he's not disrespectful either, Quinny, is he? He's not calling people lucky and whatever else too.
Totally. But as an expression, a late friend of mine, I can't say it on this, but you know, you can only play with the cards you're dealt, is probably the really nice way of putting it, kind of thing. And he's like one of these guys that just gets on with it and is all about, you know, honor, respect, and hard working, and that kind of fundamental part of who he is and how everything kind of flows around him. So yeah, 100 down. Let's hope for another, like, I don't know, 200 or 300 would be lovely. That's right.
And even add another zero into that 100, and we're really talking. It's going to, you know, I think we're still very much living in the moment. I think that is what we should do, and not try and race away from ourselves. I think it's easy as football fans, any football club, to do that. With Celtic particularly, we want our team to succeed at domestic and European football level. At European football level,
Completely.
we've certainly underachieved in recent years. We want to be at the very top table. We want to be competitive. And when we get there, we hope that Ange is the guy to do that after 100 games. As I say, I think, Aaron, I mean, you know, the situation that he inherited at that point in time was a mess, and he turned it around quickly. You hear this stuff about managers needing time in football and all that stuff. I don't doubt that he actually wouldn't have got the time. The clip that got released towards the back end of last season with Dermot Desmond, who said in it that, you know, he did a phone call, I think, with him after the Hearts game or whatever it was, and said, you know, don't worry, you get a crack at this. They clearly identified his vision, but he did turn it around really, really quickly for us, and we went in that really phenomenal run, won the League Cup. Then when we came back after the break, they were really, I think, a different animal. I know there was a couple of draws in between it, but looking back, you know, people were asking, you know, your highlight under Ange. We'll get to that at the end of the show, but there's plenty of those to kind of speak about. One thing last night that was interesting, Adam, was both fullbacks changing. He said after the game, Greg Taylor's likely going to be fit for Saturday. I would imagine he'll come back in for Saturday. Obviously, he scored the winning goal the last time we were at Tynecastle. Whatnot. I think he wanted to bring Ralston in for minutes and maybe to give Johnson just a don't want to say rest, because Ange would strike you down if you say a rest. You know, he said before that footballers get a rest when they retire and hang their boots up. So I won't use the word rest, but maybe just, you know, rotate the team and keep things fresh.
Recovery.
Recovery. That's it, Quinny. You're getting me out this hole here. Under that, I think that Ange tunes into watches, but, you know, we don't want to be
definitely
hung
does.
up.
Ange loves the show.
We don't want to get hung up in, you know, what we're saying. So, but what I was going to say that, Aaron, was Bernabei and Ralston haven't played football for a good wee while yet, and I think that showed in the early parts, probably the whole first half of the game yesterday, that they really lacked match sharpness.
Yeah, I mean, Bernabei, I think, was extremely rusty. You could tell it was his first match in 2.5 months, probably, maybe even 3.
And
It's such,
congratulations to him and that. Obviously, I
yeah.
think some people only realised yesterday that he'd had a wee baby daughter recently, and the hoops were owner at the game last night. He posted a picture of it. So sorry to interrupt there, Aaron, but just in case people were wondering where he has been, he has had a wee baby. So, but back what you were saying, he was pretty rusty, wasn't he?
It was, some of his passing was really slack, and I don't know about you, but I always thought he was out of position, and especially attacking as well. I always felt he was a wee bit nowhere. In the second half, also I'm sitting on his attacking side, and I'm seeing him try to overlap with Jota, but he's doing it at the wrong times. I feel Jota's want to go 1-on-1, and Benaby comes and drags the defender with him and makes it harder for Jota, and Jota has to end up going back the way. But I thought Ralston, I felt Moy didn't help Ralston as much as he could have. And Ralston was looking for the pass a few times, and Moy I also felt was hiding a wee bit. But I think second half they both got into a wee bit more. But I wouldn't have said pass marks in my honest opinion. But I think people are happy with Bernabe's performance on social media. But personally, I didn't see that. But
I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was anything to write home about type of thing. I think he's still really adapting, Quinny, to playing that inverted fullback role, which is fair enough. I mean, we saw Alistair Johnson take to it like a duck to water. That, for a fullback who's maybe used to going forward, he certainly looks Bernabe. He almost kind of reminds me early days of like an Azagiri type player, Quinny, that I think if you gave him the ball and told him to sprint 30, 40 yards, he'd be able to do it. And he's a great crosser of the ball, Bernabe. But at times last night, when I was watching the game, particularly in the first half, looking at its kind of Celtic shape, where I sit at the corner between the North Stand and the Jockstein Stand, you can kind of, that's my side, that left-hand side, and Hatate, O'Reilly does it particularly well. Do you like, Hatate's the master at it, pulling into that left-hand side position. If Taylor goes into the middle, Hatate will stretch it, and then the winger's usually there. He wasn't doing it too often last night for me, Bernabe. Bernabe was getting caught almost in that kind of number 10 position, and then he was nowhere to be seen. I think, though, as I say, he's still adapting to playing that inverted role. I don't want to be too harsh on him because he's just not had the game time. And I thought, last night, the events that did come into the room in the first half, I would give them both pass marks. Bernabe ends up getting an assist at the end, and he probably could have had a second one when he whips that ball across for Ralph, so that would have been quite ironic. But
Yeah.
I think for Bernabe's sake at Celtic, he's probably only going to get to the level he maybe wants to be, is just playing a wee bit more football and getting used to that role a bit better.
Well, I'd be interested to hear your kind of take on it from being at the games, particularly if they're all right in front of you, Aaron. But for me, looking at the game, I did feel that like Bernabe was a little bit of it was a wee bit of like the odd one out. It did feel like he hadn't played, but look, the last time he played was against Kilmarnock, the weekend.
It wasn't too great
January.
that day. Again, I don't like giving Celtic players a hammer because I think he's a decent enough player, but he was at the level that we maybe. I think when you say it's such high standards with Greg Taylor walking in there, it's always probably going to be tough for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you agree
That's
with
a
that?
solid 2 months ago.
So that again, Aaron?
Price tag as well. It's $4.5 million he paid for him.
Mm.
He's supposed to be this attacking fullback that's got. He's quite flary, but I've not saw that bit yet. He's not lived up to that price tag.
Well, what I was going to ask you is like, I got the impression definitely from watching it on the telly that like he was a bit of an odd one out in that sense as well, right? But like you kind of mentioned there, Declan, like normally those kind of runs are maybe done by Hatate. Hatate peels wide and then Taylor's inside, but Bernabe wants to stay wide, but then he remembers he needs to kind of do the underlapping thing. Do you think it might have been a case? I just want to hear like what you think about this. Is it maybe a wee bit of also that he's not played in a bit, but also he's quite different to Taylor, and Hatate didn't play also. So like for Jota, and Jota didn't start, so like that whole left side, it was just a wee, I don't know what you think about, maybe it's not just Bernabe in terms of getting linked up, but it's maybe the other guys linking with him also and realising he wants to be outside, so let's get him outside.
And I wish you were taking that first before I have my bit on it.
That's probably right as well, to be fair. I think Matt Riley was also on the left of that sort of midfield three. He's on the right. I just felt, like you said, he was the odd one out. He couldn't get going, but then he started to get going a wee bit in the second half, particularly towards the end of it. I felt Greg Taylor was on the bench. It might be the half-time switch, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
Aye, and again, it's tough because it's not going to help Bernaby's confidence at all if you were to hook him. But if you were to going to hook somebody, it would have been him. Again, no, Quinn, I think there's probably a point in, it doesn't help that half an hour into the game you need to take off the player that's in front of him if that's how you've been working the past few days, and Dyson goes off because we know Dyson's defensive capabilities. We obviously spoke about Jota winning that ball back earlier on, but the way Maeda works, he's always going to peel into those positions a wee bit. So, as I say, I think Bernaby's a decent enough player. It's just about getting up to probably speed with that inverted fullback role. But he said other things going on in the background, family wise, in the past 2 months. So I'm happy to, kind of paper over the cracks of that one and just see how we get on. Tony
What did you
Ralston,
say?
though.
What I
Sorry.
was going to say, I was going to ask you is what he's made of Abada last night, because he gets back in from the start. That was a bit of a surprise. And
I don't think that was a surprise. No, after Sunday, I would have
oh,
wanted
really, do
him
you
to
think so?
start. Would you agree with that, Aaron? That he probably deserved to start after Sunday?
He deserved to start, but that was probably the worst performance from a player under Ange. I think it was honest. I don't think words can describe how disappointed I was with his performance. I thought he should have a lot better than what he was, and I feel like he's a bit of a rough diamond still. And he's probably still better coming from off that bench to make that impact on the game.
Yeah.
And with
That,
those rumours coming out, I think he might be one of the ones who might be away in the summer.
Yeah, it could well be. Again, those rumours, there was absolutely bugger all direct quote that came out from it, which I think was the case with Yakimakis. But again, the media is always going to look at things. I think Abada's left Dudu Dahan to go to Juranovic's agent. You said that here last week,
Yeah.
Aaron. So they're always going to put pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. Quinn, as I say, I thought he deserved to start because he was the difference on Sunday when he came on off the bench. He was crying out for us to make a change. Gets a goal, gets a couple of assists. Really, really effective on Sunday. I thought he'd basically played his cell into the team. But I'd agree with Aaron in that in terms of the way he's been playing and just looking at him here. Um, that's now, I think it was maybe his 93rd appearance for Celtic last night. 54 appearances last season, 39 was last night. So 93 appearances. First season, 15 goals, 11 assists, 12 goals, 7 assists this season. His record is excellent, but in terms of recent weeks and recent months, he's been a much more effective player off the bench. I'd like to ask you, Quinny, on that. I think I'd agree with Aaron in that he's still a bit of a rough time too, that he snatches at things too early on. Did that a couple of times last night, was getting the ball, rather than, stop, think, then lift his head, he was just snatching at it. Um, I don't know if he'll start at the weekend, but again, be Dyson maybe not being able to maybe not being able to make the weekend. I think he might even get the start, but again, I think after bring him into the conversation, Haksabanovich's goal, I think I'd be really, really tempted to play him at the weekend. What's your thoughts on that, Quinny?
Yeah, Abada's definitely got. I don't. I was quite surprised to hear Aaron reckoning he might be off in the summer. And fair enough, the agent stuff, I wasn't really aware of that to an extent. But I think Abada, like the quotes we hear from him, it's like he's quite like, I'm in no rush. I'm in a great place.
The
Manager trusts
contract's
me.
till 2026, so it's absolutely no rush as well. It's much like a
Yeah.
situation to the other guy.
And I think for the most part, all of Abada's good games and his bad games, like we've spoke about it before, I don't really see him ever influencing a game for longer than like 10 or 15 minutes. Even like his good games, it is like a real hot burst of like he plays the assist and he makes a few runs, gets the goal, that kind of thing. And I was surprised he started because I just didn't see Jota not starting. I thought it'd be Dyson, Kyogo, Jota kind of thing,
He had a bit of a
So
stinker at the weekend, though, and he scored. I mean, I think loads of people.
yeah, fair.
I saw it on social media when I came out of the game because I was thinking to myself, Jota's not having too great a game here. And much like Bernabé Abada last night, we're saying if there was one guy you were going to probably hook, it would have been him. But what do I know? Because Jota then goes and scores a really good goal. And I hadn't noticed at the game, but he was getting absolute pelters for the St Mirren fans. I know everybody was really laughing because I think Sky had put one of the mics really close to a St Mirren fan. You could hear absolutely everything he was shouting at players. But but with Jota, I didn't think it was great at the weekend. I just thought Abada had given us something. But again, maybe it is that he's just more effective off the bench. One of the interesting things Postecoglou said last night, he was asked after the game, did any of those changes give him food for thought? And he said that he doesn't really see it that way, that he works in training with them every day. and it's just, game day is just about playing our football. So really for these players, his mindset, he spoke about going back to what we were saying earlier about 100 games. And he was asked about a moment, and he said it was the day he was appointed, mate, because he was afforded the opportunity. He's very much this type of guy that speaks. That's a really key word for him: opportunity in training. And it was something that Dan the Day said when Celtic here spoke to him a couple of months ago, was every day in training for the B team, there's an opportunity. That is something that I think's just went right, filtered right down for the manager, and that when you're up there at Lennoxtown, you've got a real opportunity to show him what you've got. And if he thinks you've got it, you get thrown in. And what one guy who I would say is doing that now, Aaron, is Matt O'Reilly, who's starting to pick up his form a bit. I know he wasn't, maybe as effective as maybe Rio. We're talking about that pulling off the left hand side, but again, he's not maybe too used to doing that. But he's starting to come into a game. I don't think he'll actually start at Tynecastle. He might, because I don't know if Aaron Moy will play 2 games in the space of 3 days. But naturally, you know what? I'm going to say O'Reilly will start at Tynecastle on Saturday. I think it'll go with O'Reilly, Hattati, McGregor. But I've been really impressed by him, and it was good to see him get his first league goal at the weekend at St Mirren.
Yeah, and he also showed another side to his game as well. I felt like when
He was
Hearts
pressing quite aggressively last night as well,
yeah,
O'Reilly.
he picked up a few loose passes as well. He stuck a foot in a few times, and I think it was 1 or 2 times in a wee slide tackle, and he was successful, won the ball, was straight up distributing it and starting the counter attacks. I'm a big fan of O'Reilly. I think he will go places, but his confidence took a big hit this season, I think. But he's starting to get it back. You can see it last night. He was trying other things he hasn't been trying this season. And I think he will, like you, start at Tynecastle on Saturday.
Yeah, that was his debut. He was outstanding that night. He, put his cell about the place. And Hattati scored an absolute rocket. If you remember right, that was not the last time we played there, but the time before that. So the two of them like that venue, and hopefully they'll be as effective when we go there on Saturday in the Scottish Cup. Quinny, looking at the overall picture just now, it's all going very well. But once again, our old friend VAR last night was. We hope that the last time we played Hearts, it was the first time it was actually ever used. We're not any step further on since it was last year. It's actually worse. I mean, last night it was pathetic. I think that's the only word I could use to describe it, is pathetic. When we get that equalising goal, and I've saw the angle now, I don't know what takes so long to look at it, because it's clear as day that Kyogo's run is onside. I don't know what the delay was at all.
Yeah, I think. Well, I had the game on one telly and had Champions League on the other, and had a few pals over. And if you see you've got it side by side, the VAR technology that they use at Champions League level versus the stuff that those guys are playing around with, it's like Microsoft Paint, like, and then you look at Champions League and it's like FIFA level 3D models.
Microsoft Paint, it's like paint, Quinny. It's like Dulux compared to that. It's murder.
Tipex on the monitor. Stuff, So maybe there's a little bit of that we're not privy to, because surely it can't be that level of incompetence or that level of bias or corruption or whatever you would want to call it, because it's ripping out them. They can't be that daft to make it that obvious, surely. So I'm now at the point of maybe it's something crazy we've never thought of, that it is like they've got a hamster on the wheel, they've got a modem on dial-up, and they've got some dodgy software that doesn't work properly. Whatever.
Well, they've got the cheap version. We know that they've got the cheapest version, and that's playing out. And again, I think I said on here, be you, Quinny, after the Motherwell game, if you think back, Aaron, the one that Jota's goal get chopped off, and they never had the camera angles to show it.
I'm just thinking, how many times have we all been there streaming a game and then it's buffering? Imagine that's happening.
That's what it must be like the VAR room. That's what it must be like the VAR room. Because at that point last night, with that first goal, right, good goal for Dyson, really good, making that run for the middle, kind of a typical goalie that should probably score for the Japan national team, because he plays as that kind of that 9, and he bangs into Xander Clark, and Xander Clark was getting a bit of treatment in the ground. That is a time that Alan Muir, and I think it was Nick Walsh in the VAR room last night, should be looking at that. So, yeah, absolutely fine goal. And, and then there's a wait. And it's 6 minutes added on to the end of the half hour. And it is beyond a joke now. And even in Saturday there too, the pictures, Quinny, you're talking about how poor it is in terms of what you're actually seeing graphic wise. Taking all the potential bias, which I know a lot of people think is the case. I think it's the case too that there is, and taking that out of it. And Saturday, the Kyogo one with Charles Dunn, they were not able to supply a picture which could clearly identified where that contact happened, which shows that the actual technology itself is just a waste of time. Because if you can't supply the correct pictures to the referees and the person in the room and a limited time frame can't watch it, what's the point? What is the point?
I've run out of words to describe the incompetence of referees, to be honest. It's laughable. It's nothing else to describe it than that. I mean, on Sunday there, the referee, every big decision he had to make, he got overturned by VAR. I mean, VAR's decisions, in my opinion, weren't always the correct ones, but still get overturned by VAR. Then last night as well, as you say, 6 minutes added on in the first half. And World Cup, we joked about the time being added on, but that you never saw that in the World Cup, 6 minutes in the first half. And what never helped that either was the Hearts players at any opportunity going down, getting the medics on, and I think Xander Clark was down 2 or 3 times in that first half, and Josh Nelly the same, a few other ones down. The weight is what's killing it, because even Haksabanovic, the third goal there, you're in the stadium VAR check for the third goal.
For a foul or something.
How can you possibly check that for offside? It's puzzling.
That is puzzling. And actually, I'm talking about Celtic's equaliser there, Quinny, from again the images which aren't clear at all. They're not clear to interpret. Again, it's becoming, a personal opinion about what actually you can see in the image. You could probably sit 3 people down and they might see something different with it. The Hearts.
Again, that's a big problem with Declan, is it's meant to be for clear and obvious errors. You know what I mean? It's not like
clear.
Let's see the one, the penalty where it was like in the box and out the box. Like, that's not a clear and obvious error from the referee awarding a penalty, for example, right? Because, like you say, you can look at that 1,000 times. It is meant to be where the foul occurs, and it was in the box. There's no reason for it to be where the foul starts. You never get that, and particularly when VAR is brought into the equation. So it's like you guys are it's over refereeing it. It's every decision. It's meant to be for clear and obvious gaffes, like errors that have ruined the game or are going to make it an unfair outcome. That's the prime directive of this stuff, above all.
And it's continually being subjective. One of the things I was going to say there was the Janelli goal, Aaron, from the angle, and again, it's the image that they've produced. It looks offside.
It does.
Because his knee is in front of where Carl Starfelt is. Unless the rules change that you can actually only score a goal with your feet, he's offside.
It is. I mean, I saw that angle on Twitter last night, and it was clear as day to me. I was like, how have they looked at that image and then decided that was an onside goal? But the problem isn't always VAR either. I mean, these referees they're not even professional, they're part-time. Instead of putting all this money into VAR,
David Dickinson looked completely off the pace of the game on Sunday, by the way, and that equalising goal. If you ever look at the image, the linesman's leaving up to speed with play. I know Kyogo's fast, but they're there to do a job, and they're not actually doing that job. So again, it's 2 games that we've won. We always try and highlight. I think it's important to highlight it after you've won. I'm not just on having a sob story, after I've lost points or whatever else. But yeah, another shocking performance with it. And again, people would probably say that at the weekend there was a weight we owes penalty to. I want to ask you both about what was your take on his performance on Sunday, particularly. I know he came on last night. Quinny, quite a what should we say? He's penalty on it. What kind of what word did you use to describe it? It was pretty bold, wasn't it? He had to score after doing all that stuff.
Oh, he definitely had to, yeah, it was something else to say the least. He's been good, man. He's eager to please, isn't he? You can tell as soon as he's on the pitch, he wants his teammates to be happy, he wants us to be happy, he wants the manager to be happy. He's really happy to get stuck in, embrace everything that's been asked of him. And yeah, for a few appearances he's had, I find it quite tough to really form much of an opinion on him beyond he's given it his all and it looks decent, but until he gets a couple of starts, I think that's when we'll really see a bit more of oh, he could maybe do this, or he's not really got any of that. Outdoors went 2
Aaron,
seconds.
Aaron, what was your take on him? I thought it was pretty impressive in the cup final particularly, but again, I think when he's pretty spot on with that, he gives his all, he goes at it, but we've not probably seen enough to judge him as of yet.
Nah, we've not seen enough to judge him. He's only came on for the last 20 minutes if he's lucky, the past few games. He had that chance last night. You could see he was towards the left side of the goal. He was desperate trying to get back to his right foot. Instead, he ran out of time and missed a chance almost. So it's quite frustrating for him. I think the fans were frustrated as well. Just wished he took that shot when he had the chance to, instead of and to work back to his right foot. Then that would come with the confidence you would hope. So a few goals under his belt, a few starts hopefully, and he'll be scoring that, no bother.
Yeah, absolutely. Quinny, we've now played Hearts once. I think we said at the top of the show that it's set up for a bit of a cracker on Saturday. How do you see the game going? I think it's going to be a good old-fashioned cup tie on Saturday, but I think you'll see, again, maybe 3 or 4 Celtic changes. I think Greg Taylor will probably come back into the side. Ange just said he was a bit sore. That centre-half pair and goalkeeper won't change. I think Johnston will likely come back in. As I say, I fancy O'Reilly. He continues place in midfield with Hatate, McGregor. I think Haksabanovic might start with Jota and either flank and Kyogo up top. They're my team. Do you see, again, a wee bit of rotation?
Yeah, I think there'll definitely be some changes. I think Rio comes right back into the team. I was actually thinking as well when we were chatting about Abada, like that Abada's best when he's running at people and he's got space to put somebody else on the back foot. And when Hearts go 1-0 up, probably the game dynamic has went away from Abada and it's probably, went against him because they can camp in a bit deeper and then he's running at people all standing on their feet kind of thing. So I don't know if Abada did start, I don't know if maybe he could be a wild card to come back in since Dyson has picked up a knock. Maybe Jota just goes into the left, keeps Abada on the right. But the former Haksabanovic definitely puts him in the conversation, whether it even be, if it was to be some sort of wild card situation, maybe in the attacking midfield spot, because he has done that before. And I think he's on record as saying that's what he fancies.
He's a 10. Yep.
Yeah.
I think he'll play anywhere though. He'll be, again, I spoke earlier about that opportunity type thing. I think he'll be really saying to the manager, I'm ready to play here. And he gives Hearts a complete different problem in Saturday. And again, you see something else. And we know he can hit the back of the net. He was important towards the first part of the season type of thing before the World Cup. Cracking goal last night. We've not even spoken about that. It was a really, really good effort.
That was brilliant. He was finding his form they had that month before the World Cup when he got that Player of the Month award. But all last night, he just oozed confidence. He came on, was eager to get on the ball, was eager to drive at the defence, create some chances. And he took that ball and worked his way to the just slightly inside the box. Superb strike, and he left the keeper with no chance there. It's a top strike, and that will certainly give him confidence, but also give the manager something to think about coming into Saturday when you've got to say he's due a start, he's earned that start like Abada did last Sunday.
Aye, I would agree with that. Before we close, 100 games under Ange Postecoglou, Quinny, favourite game and a favourite moment. So you can pick an actual in-game and then you can pick a moment. What are you going for? Aaron, you can think of it. I said it while Quinny's talking.
I would struggle with this. I'd probably say favourite game would probably be Dundee United 9-0 because that was just a party from start to finish. Everyone got involved, a lot of great goal scorers and all that good stuff. And in terms of favourite moment, probably winning the league, in terms of winning the trophy and seeing him in the stadium and giving the speech and all that kind of thing.
I think that's a pretty fair 2 shouts in that. Aaron, come over to you in that one. Favourite game and favourite moment?
Favourite game will have to be a 3-0 Derby win. That Wednesday night under the lights. So just something special about that. First Derby game back at Celtic Park with fans. The win that put us top of the table, didn't move since then. When you think of a Derby, to me, that's the first thing I think of now was standing there, and it was good game. My favourite moment, favourite moment. It's quite hard. I mean, there's been lots of great moments. I mean, the one that stands out to me straight away is the one at Hampden just a few weeks back. Half-time, we're all never seen half-time like that before. That was really special, I felt. But also, after the Real Madrid game, it was 3-0 we lost. but we're all still chanting the manager's name as he walks around the park, and I felt that as well. We'd just been beat, but we'd showed we can put up a fight against the holders of the competition. I felt that was really special, and that really showed the backing of the fans.
I would agree with the game that you've picked there. You know, Celtic ran riot that night. We hadn't beaten Rangers, I think, in 7 games or something. It was the first time we returned to the top of the table since September 2020. This was February 2022. We had beaten Dundee United a few days before that by a Bada's goal. And in the 90th minute, Rangers had dropped points. I thought that was a night that we kind of put down a marker that, but we're still the dominant force in this country. It was one bad season, and here we are. I don't want to say we're back, because I don't think we really ever went away anyway. It was just we had an off season. So, and again, the atmosphere was absolutely electric that night. Our rivals wanted the game played behind closed doors with no punter in the stadium. So I think everything just came together that night. The manager came away with that great comment after the game as well, if you remember right, and saying, people come in here with troubles and woes, and it's our job to make them forget about that for 90 minutes and basically switch off from their life, no matter how busy, hectic, or whatever else it is. And in terms of moment, I'd probably say winning that first cup under Ange was pretty special, because the direction was there. I think it's always pretty hard for some people who maybe had their doubts. I certainly didn't when he came in. I'm always one of these kind of people that wants any Celtic manager, no matter who they are, to come in, be a success right away. I think the whole Howe thing dragged that out. You could actually probably say that one of my favourite moments is the day eventually was confirmed as manager. It was a Thursday morning, if I remember right, and he was on the Zoom call with Paul Cuddy after it. So, but I'm going to go for that first cup win. I thought that gave players taste of silverware, and it showed that the direction that we were going to start to go under the manager. So, but there's plenty. I think those are good shoots. Again, even that 4-0 Derby win at the start of the season in September, I think kind of asserted that, we're still on top here, and we're going to be in dominate, and long may that continue. Gents, pleasure to speak to you both. Again, here's to 100 more. Ange Postecoglou and ourselves probably on here. We shall catch our audience later on. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All the good content will be over on the site too, and we'll catch you next week on the CELTSAREHERE flagship podcast. Cheers.